This episode is proudly supported by OpenTable.
Nearly 1/3 of diners are booking same day. So they're making those decisions on the spot. And 10% are making their bookings within just a few hours. And so it's why it's so important to have booking software like OpenTable, which allows your diners to discover you. And so when restaurants are on platforms like OpenTable, they're much more likely to be discovered. We help diners to connect to restaurants. Ultimately, having technology, using technology, helps you to reattach to those diners.
Experience the power of OpenTable. For an exclusive offer, visit restaurant.opentable.com.au/DITW.
I love cooking, so I love that peace and quiet of being able to prepare. People are so grateful and you get to interact with them and be part of their event and see the joy that good food brings to people.
This is the Deep in the Weeds podcast. I'm Anthony Huckstep. Often we talk about food in restaurants as pushing the boundaries of gastronomy, authenticity, and of connecting with farmers and making the produce shine. But at its core, food is about nourishment and sating the body and mind too. How do you build a career that focuses on all of this? Sarah Wilton is the owner of Chef Sarah. Sarah, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. It's good to get you on the show. You do all sorts of interesting things, from catering to working in really sort of nourishing food in that area. Tell us a little bit about what you do.
So my main business is called Chef Sarah. That's where I do small catering jobs. So I go to a lot of holiday houses because we're located in a beautiful holiday area near Foster, near Bluey's Beach, that sort of area. So I'm going into people's homes, I'm going into people's holiday homes, and I'm doing dinner parties from sometimes as small as 2 people up to probably maximum, I can push it to 80, but 50 is a good number. 10's a really nice number. Yeah. So, yeah, and I'm just going into, the normal domestic kitchen and cooking up feasts. Sometimes I'm doing, degustation. Often more now it's sort of the banquet to table, family style, sharing meals. That's what people seem to like, more casual. Yeah, so that's my main job, but I also have a few little side projects. So I make organic chicken liver pate and I sell that locally. So organic chicken livers, grass-fed butter, bone broth reduction, brandy, and I sell that at the local bottle shop deli, and I sell it at the local Go Vita health food shops. And yeah, what else am I doing? And then I have my second business, which is called Nourish Soul Sanctum, which I collaborate with a yoga teacher, Megan Jones. And we do yoga retreats. So we might do 3-night yoga retreats off-site. We usually go to the same venue, which is located in Stroud, which is about an hour sort of west of here or of Newcastle. Yeah, and it's all about wellness and retreating and taking some time out. It's mostly for women, I guess. And we have a lot of fun because she's also my best friend.
Well, I want to explore some of the things that you're doing there. You mentioned that often you're catering for, small numbers or large numbers, but using someone's domestic kitchen. Is there any challenges, and do you have any stories of, arriving and dealing with a kitchen that you sort of not used before?
Well, yeah, they all have a story. I think I've blocked a lot of it out. It's usually the oven. It's usually that oven, and I get there and I crank it and see how it goes, and often I think, what am I doing? Because it takes a while to learn what an oven does, what it's like. I haven't had any disasters. It actually amazes me a lot of the time that I can pull it off. I think I had 5 chickens once in a 60-centimetre oven, and they cooked right on time.
You mentioned that part of what you do is partnering with your friend with the yoga retreats and sort of nourishing food. You know, a lot of chefs talk about fat is flavor. How do you sort of approach what you do, you know, bringing flavor and making sure there's nutrient-rich food as well when you're catering and doing these events?
Yes, that's an interesting question. So I am all about the fat. Let me tell you, I love butter. My daughter's embarrassed by how much butter I put on a sandwich. She's actually told me to stop. So butter's my friend. But, you know, there's coconut oil. It's cold-pressed virgin coconut oil, I believe, is also good. Anything that's unrefined and unprocessed, I'm all for that. I'm not a vegetarian or a vegan, but on our retreats we do mostly vegan food. But I wouldn't recommend that long term. I think that's nice to do a cleanse or a detox. It's very cleansing to eat that much plant-based food in 3 or 4 days. And yeah, it's really been a challenge because before that I was mostly carnivore-ish, paleo sort of based for myself. And I had to learn, how to cook vegan or raw vegan, and it's been, I'm still learning. I don't think necessarily that's a good way to live. That's my personal opinion. To be vegan, I don't think is sustainable.
Tell us a little bit about these yoga retreats and the sort of food that you create. What's the sort of typical menu or dishes that you might create for that experience?
Yeah, well, we start the day sort of light with a cold-pressed juice bar and some miso soup, because a lot of people are really used to eating a big breakfast, which I am not. But it's geared towards having the main meal in the middle of the day when the sun is the hottest and the brightest. That's when we should be eating the most, and then paring it back towards the night time. So we might start the day then with organic porridge or a chia seed bircher. And then at lunch we might have a sort of a big buffet, and I usually base it on like a certain cuisine from a certain area in the world and sort of go from there. We don't use a lot of grains. We're gluten-free. I prepare all grains, legumes and nuts properly by soaking them, which is makes it more nutritious and more bioavailable for the body. And then dinner time, we might go soup and salad. Yeah, and then we'll have an afternoon, like a sweet treat in the afternoon. So it's all, refined sugar-free as well.
Well, I want to explore some of the things that you're doing, particularly with the catering Chef Sarah. But take us back to when you were young. What sort of role did food play in your family growing up?
Yeah, I've been thinking about this, obviously, because I knew I was coming on here. But I think really my whole life has been based around food, because I grew up on a pig farm, which is all about food. And then surrounded by orchards, because it was just outside of Orange, which is apparently known as the food basket of New South Wales. Now I think it's more like the grapevine basket. You know, a lot of those orchards now are not there. They've been replaced with grapes. And where I grew up now, it used to be orchard, and now a lot of that's gone. They're just sort of paddocks, which is really sad. So, I grew up on a pig farm, and that was all I knew.
Do you have any stories of life on the pig farm?
Oh, gosh. I do remember, Dad getting upset with me because I used to go and sit in the farrowing cages with the mother pig, where she couldn't actually reach her young, and I used to play with the piglets, and they'd all become too tame, and that sort of thing. And my dad wouldn't eat pork, so I don't know if that was because he loved them or the opposite. I think it was the smell, actually. Yeah. And so I didn't start eating pork until later on when I moved to China, and that was pretty much it. You needed to eat pork over there.
take us back to life when you were young. When did you sort of start getting involved in the kitchen and sort of having an interest in food?
Yeah, I think I was born obsessed with food. Maybe it was because I had so many brothers. There was 5 of us all together, and if you didn't get in and get your fair share, you'd miss out because they were hungry boys, and they still are. So I do have this other distinct memory of being in kindergarten and being asked, what do you want to be when you grow up? And the girl next to me drew a princess and I drew a chef. So I think it started young, and I was always baking and, Mum, can I make a cake? And that would make everyone happy if I was baking cakes.
Tell us about your road to becoming a chef. When did that sort of get traction, and what were the sort of big influences on you?
Yeah, so when I was in high school in Orange, they offered hospitality in year 11 and 12, so you could go to TAFE and sort of, I don't know what it's called, I can't remember, but it's sort of like a certificate too in hospitality, something like that. So I think it was 1 day a week, we'd just go to TAFE and we'd have our chef's whites and our little toolboxes, and I loved it. And the teachers there were amazing. They were so good and they were so influential, and they gave me the confidence and sort of saw something in me that gave me the confidence to keep going, and I just loved it. And I remember getting a chef's knife for Christmas one year, and so from there after year 12 I went to Brazil on exchange, and so I didn't really start a cooking career until I came back from there, and I sort of fought it. I didn't think that's what I wanted to do, but I just fell into it.
Do you have any stories from your time in Brazil and the sort of food that you experienced there?
Yeah, well, that place blew my mind because I'd grown up on a little farm out of town in Orange, and, we didn't really do a lot of travelling as kids because Dad was so tied to the farm. So then I moved to Brazil and ended up on an island with 42 beaches. It was like the best time ever, I couldn't speak the language. I lived with a Brazilian family and I had to learn pretty quick. But their food is all based on culture and tradition and bringing their huge families together and having big barbecues. And we used to go out in the boat, this little speedboat, because we lived on a lagoon that went out to the ocean, and we'd go on the boat and we'd go to these little bars on the side of the lagoon that would sell these amazing fish and chips with fresh lime. I mean, I don't even think I'd seen a lime before I went there. Amongst everything else, it was, blew my mind.
You mentioned that you moved to China at one stage. Tell us about that experience. When did that happen?
That happened, I think it was 2003. So I was about 25 and I just finished my apprenticeship at Bathurst Pavilion. I just finished there and I'd sort of had enough. I needed a break, and so we did this teaching English as a foreign language course and signed a contract to live in China for a year, and so we ended up over there. And that was also, we were in a place where, a lot of the locals had never seen a Western person. And there was a lot of food options. We used to go to KFC to get some bread. And then they opened Walmart and we were excited about that. But we ended up eating just like the locals. And that was amazing because it wasn't like your average, sweet and sour pork down at the Chinese restaurant. It was amazing.
Are there any dishes that stand out from your time there that you look back on fondly?
There's the Sichuan cooking. I didn't know that existed before I went there. Just the amount of chili that they used, it was all amazing. And the way that they can cook sort of all these dishes in this crappy little stove with a wok and a rice cooker, and they prepare these amazing banquets. So, yeah, we were living in the thick of it there too. And just, I guess the noodle soups. Yeah, they're amazing. And the dumplings. I've eaten a lot of dumplings in my time. Probably too many.
You briefly mentioned Bather's Pavilion and your apprenticeship there. Do you have any stories of what that was like and the influence it had on you and your cooking?
Yeah, it was right at the end of my apprenticeship that I ended up there. It was always a dream of mine to be in the best restaurant in Sydney, and I just had to do that. I had to get there, and I did end up there. But I was fourth year, and I was in the cold larder, and I was really at the bottom of that sort of hierarchy in the fine dining restaurant. It was hard work. It was 7 days a week, and they were long days, and I learned a lot. It was amazing. That restaurant is amazing. It's got the bakery, it's got the cafe. I think it's changed a lot since I was there. That was, a fair while ago now, 20 years. Yeah, 20 years ago.
You mentioned that China was a break away from chefing for a period of time. What was the step back into the industry that you made?
Yeah, well, I realised when I did that I sort of lost my zest for life. My happy place is in the kitchen. I did a lot of eating over there, but I felt like I'd sort of, lost my way there for a bit. So we came back and moved to Newcastle. So I went into Crown Plaza there. I was chef de partie and sort of worked my way up a bit there, and the chef had a lot of confidence in me, and he was a great chef, John Leadbitter. And that was a good experience too, because I always wanted to get into a hotel and have that experience. And then they sort of started, towards the end of there, they were starting to bring in all the sort of pre-manufactured sauces and all that sort of, consistency-based food. So I left there, and then I ended up in the Snowy Mountains at Perisher, just running a little sort of, what do they call them? Up in Perisher anyway, just a small sort of, not a chalet, but a little restaurant there, and that was a lot of fun because I was in charge.
Well, tell us, what was it like being in charge, and what was the offering that you were creating there?
Well, they sort of, it was dinner for the guests that was staying there. It was hard work, but I knew I could do it. We'd do it sometimes I'd do 60 covers a night by myself, that sort of thing. So I guess you learn to be pretty savvy in the kitchen because a lot of the time those places, they've got no staff.
What sort of food were you cooking there? Can you give us an example of? All
I can remember now is lamb shanks. Hearty food. But no, I think I had some kangaroo on the menu and local trout and and then I ended up down at, then from there I went to Malaysia. So that gave me the confidence to branch out and take on a real job. So I ended up in a 5-star hotel in KL, opening up a new restaurant. I don't know how, but that's what happened. Someone saw something in me and I went over there, and I was in I think it was a 500-room hotel in the Gold Triangle, and they were opening they wanted a mod Oz bistro in the heart of KL, and I was the one to do that, which was very challenging because I had no clue. And the restaurant hadn't even been finished yet, the fit out, and it took so long. It was delayed and delayed and delayed.
What was life like in KL? Do you have any stories of sort of food adventures there?
Yeah, it was great because I lived in the hotel. And so, downstairs there was a tandoori kitchen, and around the corner there was the night markets, and around the corner from there was, little Italian bistros, or there was, the big 5-star hotels with the most amazing restaurants and most amazing buffets and high teas and Sunday brunches. And I was lucky enough to meet one of the chefs the exec, was she the exec chef? Anyway, Kelly Dickinson, she was working at the Hilton and we were about the same age, and she was Australian. She was sort of the protege of Chong Lu. And so I sort of fell in with them, and they showed me the way and they helped me. Without them, I would have been so lost, because no one in the hotel I was working in had worked with any sort of Western produce. It was all very traditional, I guess.
What did you take from your time in KL?
Oh, geez. I don't know. Feels like a long time ago now. That probably that big scale sort of cooking is not for me. Yeah, because I ended up back in the Snowy Mountains, and then I took over Crackenback Cottage restaurant. So it's sort of a bit iconic down that way. I don't know how it's going now. I think it might have closed.
Crackenback definitely had cult status for quite some time. Tell us about that venue and what you were doing there.
Oh, I loved it there because, it was mine, and I was sort of allowed to make it my own, and we were working sort of seasonally and trying to do sort of local produce, that sort of thing. It was a little tiny kitchen, and we were pumping out the meals in the winter time. It was really hard work, but I loved it. I thrived on it.
What sort of food were you doing at that time?
Well, it was fairly simple, sort of, I guess, classic sort of food. Just trying to pare it back a bit and make it manageable and delicious, and trout, local trout, pork belly. We're doing some good desserts. We're making everything from scratch. I mean, we sold scones as well. There was plenty of morning and afternoon teas. But it taught me to pare things back and just, not try to recreate the wheel of cookery.
When did you decide to go out on your own and create the catering company, Chef Sarah? What was that like?
Yeah, so I left Crackenback, and then I was working in another restaurant, and I was just a bit burnt out, did some travel, and then found myself pregnant. I think of the day that I found out I was pregnant, I started a new job teaching commercial cookery at TAFE, which in Cooma, and that really wasn't for me either. And then I was just so sick of the cold with a baby, and we ended up moving up to where I am now, so located near Foster, the Great Lakes area. I think my daughter Maya was about 2, and a friend asked me to cater a family reunion, and I was like, oh yeah, I could do that. That's pretty easy. And then from there, it just went from there, and it's just been word of mouth, and it's just evolved amazingly. Yeah, I'm really lucky. It's a good area.
What does it take to sort of run a small bespoke catering business, such as yours? What are the challenges that you have?
I think the main challenge is logistics. So, I have my own sort of semi-commercial kitchen on my property. So I do most of the prep there, and then I have to transport it with all my equipment. And a lot of the time I don't really know what I'm going into, so I just take everything I need. Just loading up and unpacking and getting it done, and then you have to do it all again, like take it all home. So that's probably the biggest hurdle, really. You have to be super organised, because if you forget something, a lot of the time you don't have time to go back.
COVID sort of changed everyone's world in the last couple of years, and sort of catering got impacted pretty dramatically. What sort of impact did it have on you and what you do?
Yeah, initially, well, I had no work, so obviously people were scared and they didn't want to do anything, and I was bunkering down. And so then I was working with a lady, Sue Williams, who runs a small business here called Farm to Fridge. So where she's gathered sort of all the local producers and providores, and she created an online store, and then she'd deliver once a week locally. So I just started making everything that I could possibly think of and putting it into jars. So I was already making the pate, I think, and sauerkraut and ferments, and then I started making, local buffalo beef bourguignon and bolognese and pumpkin soup and lavash and hummus, cashew cheese, baba ganoush, anything I could put in a jar, duck soup. And then I even was helping her deliver and pack. And, there'd be local fruit and veggies and the local sourdough bakery. And so that's actually saved us. It saved our family. It was a tough time. And then from there, when it sort of opened up again, then everyone went crazy on the at-home dinner parties, and my business absolutely just went crazy. So I was still sort of doing the farm to fridge thing and then doing the dinner parties, and it was full on. It really made me realise what I could achieve. But I don't think it was sustainable for me, because also the kids were there and there's, everything going on. But yeah, it was a bit of a crazy time.
Were these sort of events different to what you had experienced before COVID? Like, were people's expectations and desires different?
I think they were just so grateful because they could sort of, be together again and have a good time, and they realised that going out to dinner wasn't all it's cracked up to be, especially around here. And I think things have even improved around here a bit in the last couple of years, but they didn't have to go out. They'd bring their own wine. They don't have to drive home. They can put the kids in the back room and have a great time. And, yeah, everyone's really grateful and appreciative. And, yeah, it's actually a lot of fun sort of being part of that and being part of people's events. And, a lot of the time you've got to kick people out of the kitchen because, they have a few wines and they're in the kitchen. That's the other hurdle. It's the oven and the people and the drinks.
You've also sort of been involved with the Great Lakes Food Trail. Tell us a little bit about that and some of the local producers that you connect with.
Yeah, well, that was a spin-off really from what Sue created with Farm to Fridge. They started I don't know which one came first, and I'm not quite sure, but the Great Lakes Food Trail is just local providores and small farms in the area that are sort of running sustainably or, along those lines. So there's a lot of great producers around here, and it's getting better all the time. We've had a few events. You do drive your own farm visits, and we'd set up markets, like market stalls. So I'd be cooking omelettes with the local burdock buffalo cheese, or what else did I do? I might have done rice paper rolls with local chicken or things like that, selling my pate. And then other people would there's a local pastry chef, Nadine the Cake Queen, and she'd be whipping up all these desserts using local produce. And then there's the local baker, and then there's the lamb producer and the local wineries. Yeah, that sort of thing. So it sort of runs. I think they're having a couple of events each year. I mean, that was also hit really hard with lockdowns and that sort of thing. And I think they're just getting back on their feet now. We did a big event a couple of months back. We did 4 courses, and they had some permaculture speakers. I think the theme was, so you want to live on a farm? That's not all it's cracked up to be. Yeah. But yeah, a lot of fun, and a collaboration between different chefs and restaurants around the area and using local produce.
You've created this amazing little catering company. What do you love about what you do with it?
I love being able to do what I want to do. I love the freedom of saying yes or no to people. If I, need that weekend off, or I want to spend time with the family. I love cooking, so I love that peace and quiet of being able to prepare, usually by myself, and then going there, and it's almost like being invited to a party, and people are so grateful, and you get to interact with them and be part of their event. And see the joy that good food brings to people. And they're always great clients, always.
You've had such great success with the catering company. What's the next year ahead look like? Do you have any plans?
Don't really know. Actually, yes, we do have plans because I've been spending obviously more time with my business partner, Megan, and our retreats are kicked off again, after a really hard couple of years with cancellations and that sort of thing. So our plan is to write a book, so a recipe book, because every time that we do our retreats, everyone wants a recipe. And I've been fighting it, and because I'm not really a recipe follower, but but the time has come, so we'll be doing a sort of a whole food, and I guess you'd call it a wellness book. So that's exciting. Yeah.
Wow. We'll look forward to seeing that. It's an honour to have you on Deep in the Weeds today to hear just a part of your story. Please keep in touch, and we'll catch up again soon.
Thanks, Anthony. Thanks for having me on. It was great.
This is the Deep in the Weeds podcast. I'm Anthony Huckstep. Stay tuned as we take a deep dive into the lives of the incredible people who ply their trade in the food and hospitality sector. Special thanks to executive producer Rob Locke for making this all happen. Follow us on Instagram at Deep in the Weeds Podcast, or email us at podcast@deepintheweeds.com.au. Stay safe and be well.